So, Virginia House lawmakers repeal change to disabled veterans tuition program. Will work on new deal. Look, here we are, right? It's political stuff. Of course, they work on what deal. Okay, what's the new? Should be replaced. Like, go back, just get rid of it and go back to how it was because it was pretty awesome. So they're going to work on a new deal. What are your guys' thoughts, Randy? How about you?
Well, I'm glad they're working on a new deal. I hate that, a second deal, which, dropped benefits, kind of came out of nowhere. Virginia does have some generous benefits as well. It should for its veterans, particularly centering around education. What I have a concern with here is the process. This initial trimming of benefits, and it was substantial. We're not, going to go into the whole backstory here, but it kind of caught a lot of veterans off guard. And Virginia is a veteran heavy state. There's a number of military installations. I, for one, was stationed there at one point in my career. So I was really surprised, especially given the political climate in Virginia, which tends to be, favorable to veterans, that they would do something like this. Now, before I throw it over to Chris, I want to make a point. This article, and we will leave a link to it below, is, pointing that they're kind of putting the toothpaste back in the tube. They're trying to undo something that became very, very politically unpopular very quickly in an election year. So I think that that's a good thing. It's just concerning that it happened in the first place. If there's concerns around the budget, which is where all of this comes from, I don't think that the one-stop shop should be the back of veterans to balance a budget. It just doesn't seem like a very fair, particularly without a really robust public debate. And, I know there's people that are going to say, well, these are elected legislatures and they followed their procedures and blah, 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 blah. When you have as many veterans caught off guard as you did with these shenanigans, there's a problem with process. So that's my initial take. I'm going to throw it down to Chris and let you chime in here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the come on, man. Like, what were you thinking type moment? And I mean, I get it. There's the cost of the programs increased over the years, probably because people become aware of it. People figure out how to leverage the benefits. So maybe it didn't fit into their financial plans. But generally speaking, that's why you run a budget. That's why you go through the voting process. And that's why you get to a point to where you don't get to the last minute and just start dumping programs on, especially on veterans. Right. So, this was a moment that I'm sure all of them would like to take back. Maybe it just seemed a little bit too convenient. And look, I mean, to give them the benefit of the doubt, this article doesn't show other places where they had to make tough cuts either. So look, I'm coming from the private industry side. You never get what you want. You always start with more. I get it. Times are tough. But this is probably something that people like to go back in time on and relook and rethink before they make such a goofy move.
I agree. Absolutely, Chris. And I think that I would be very surprised if the governor actually knew fully what was in it. I mean, look, these people don't read everything. They rely on their staffers, the staffer that deals with this, the staffer that deals with that. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Everything looks good on my side type of stuff, typically. But, so it's either the staffer who said that that's a great idea. That sucks. So the good idea fairy has landed again, right? If in fact it was the governor who actually knew full well that he was signing this, shame on him, right? Now, here's an interesting number that I want to throw out to you guys. Every state is different, right? Depending on the amount of veterans that are in them. But veterans bring in a financial, economic component to the states. I've talked about it before with you guys. Virginia specifically, let's just talk about compensation, okay? Just VA compensation, not post 9/11 GI Bill, not VRNE, not retirement, not pensions, none of the other stuff. Just disability compensation. In Virginia, there's 600, almost 700,000 veterans. Of that amount, almost 250,000 veterans are receiving VA compensation. So money in their bank, and where are they spending it? In their state, mostly, right? You want to know how much money VA compensation brings into that state? Almost $6 billion a year. $6 billion a year into that state. And guess what? Governors of small states, beware. It's not hard to jump the border and go live in a veteran-friendly state. I'm just saying. So if the veterans leave your state, they're taking that money with them. And not only that.
You do know anybody that may have done that recently?
No, heck yeah, man. Yes, absolutely. And it's a real thing, man. And it gets even more real in the small states where it's like, I live on the border of 3 different states. I could just, easily and live in the same environment, have the same friends, and do all of that. So instead of stabbing veterans in the eye with legislation, bad moves, they should be doing stuff to attract veterans and retain veterans in their states, in my opinion. Anyway, let's jump back into this, see what they're doing here. So the House of Delegates voted unanimously to repeal changes, okay, good, to a program that provides free tuition to families of those killed on active duty or who are at least 90% disabled. Now, look, I'm going to throw this out there. I get they're trying to save money. To Randy's point, not on the back of a veteran. Generous education bill, program was in place. It's gone now. Now they're trying to bring it back, of 90% rated veterans. A lot of states out there, they want you to be 100%. Some states don't care. Some have different levels, especially when it comes to spouses. So to have such a sweeping, just from a 90% and above qualify to nobody, instead of stair-stepping it and just going like, we're going to get rid of the 90%, you have to be 100% now, I'm sorry, approach seemed really weird to me. What do you guys have any thoughts on just that big jump and not anything in between?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a little bit about it on this channel before. I find the percentage and the term disabled, both sides of that equation, to be really problematic. I know that they're done for rational reasons, but ultimately, when you have as many state agencies and state governments relying on that criteria and that sort of vernacular to make decisions about veterans, it becomes problematic. And I know that this all flows from the VA, and they have their reasons for doing it, but not something that I'm a fan of, because to Jason's point, you end up in these weird sort of stair steps of benefits that are divergent between states. And it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. I know we all like numbers. The human mind, kind of zeroes in on things on a piece of paper that have to do with numbers. But I think it confuses the matter. And I think that there's a better way to do it. So that's me, Chris. I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, I mean, to pick on the people who are 90% disabled or were killed in action, the families of those people. Like, if you want to do something, save a little scratch, look at your program, understand why it's running the way it's running, why the costs have increased, and then make the adjustments accordingly. But still, you've made promises to veterans that you're not keeping. That's some bad mojo right there. It's easy to bust on California for a lot of things, but the California tuition fee waiver is actually an excellent program. And, they step it up depending upon percentages of disability ratings, and they do special things for folks in this category that we're talking about here today. And that can't be cheap, right? So, but if you think about it, and what Jason was saying, not only keeping people in the state and benefiting from from their buying power and other mechanisms. It keeps the children in the state, generally speaking, too. And so every state is short of highly qualified workers, and so now you got people whose kids are going to schools, getting degrees, and joining the workforce. And so it just seems like it was very, very, very short-minded thinking here.